Hey guys, thanks for checking out my 10-minute audios. 10-minute long thoughts and work of what I've done, my experiences, and how I learned to do what I do, and what I do see and intuit and process in regards to what dogs are doing. So you see extremely dangerous dogs like Gordon the disabled bulldog, or Axel the German Shepherd, or Brando the pit bull, or Bruno the Saint Bernard. All these dogs are dangerous, like Tonka, Walter, Nero, David, formerly Griffin. All these dogs are extremely dangerous. Have attempted to kill people. These are 150 to 200-pound dogs who will attack other dogs, people, and do some really extremely profoundly predatorial things, literally trying to kill people and dragging them into their shelter and stuff. I bring them into the home here. I work with them. They're off leash. They're not muzzled. As soon as possible, I can get the muzzle off. The muzzle is off, and there's still an extremely high risk of danger, of course. Then I go towards integrating them with the other dogs here, who are Great Danes, and they're all very solitary personalities because of their previous lives, like Miki the Jindo, who was born and raised in a meat dog farm in Korea, who have seen other dogs tortured to death, boiled alive. And so Miki has extremely specific sets of dysfunctions. And what I'm doing is, through all the stuff, everything that I learned, I had to learn all by myself. I had no prior training. I had contacted rescues and trainers and checked online for all these things. None of it was working because most of the people, well, everyone was basically saying when a dog is that dangerous, there's nothing he can do. And it turned out to be Lincoln, my first Great Dane, Lincoln Jr., who turned out to be extremely dangerous, and I never knew that. And he's 154 pounds at the time. So I just kind of use my intuition, and I realized, you know what, dogs are like children, yes, but the functionality and the structure of how they are processing is extremely different in the sense of dogs versus children, because dogs have the innate predator inside of them, like we all do. We're humans, we're apex predators. So is understanding that process plus the structure of emotions and the dog's relative comprehension in the context. So I'm trying to explain this in more simple manners. There's that structure the dog has to have, circumstantial context of understanding and comprehending what the emotions are feeling, because there's no relative structure. There's no egocentrism to be introspective. There's no ability for the dog to look back to another dog and go, hey, why do I feel like this? Right? So there's no relational structure. We as human beings have the amazing ability to physically and audibly articulate comprehension of our dog's psychological emotions and structure, because again, the manifestation that they're experiencing is extremely foreign, and so it's easier for them to default to core emotions, basic emotions of either rage slash or fear. That's it. So they're going to core down to these behaviors because there's no other choice, because that's all they know, and they have no comprehension in a cross-species cohabitative comprehension that, yes, you know what, there is something happening that is emotional, and I'm not feeling as much profound base emotions such as fear of what's going on. Instead, I feel not threatened. And we have to look at that structure in regards to how children are, and the processing of how of like the basic emotions are complex for a dog to kind of figure out. Most dogs have a happy, positive home life. Then hey, you know what? They're around it, and they're not fully cogent in the full breadth of emotional structure. And I mean that in the sense of not saying that, oh, my dog's happy and he seems pretty confident. I mean that in the sense that where a dog has the ability to go and be, and has or can prove to be a predator, an extremely dangerous dog, and being able to teach and guide that dog, like David, Griffin, who's 3 feet 2 inches at his shoulders, 200 pounds, 16 bites. So he doesn't have 16 attacks like Tonka or Walter from the newspaper out in New York there. He was on 80 milligrams of Prozac and 750 milligrams of Trazodone for 2 years of his life. So he has serotonin syndrome that is going to also cause, as a side effect, aggression from taking that type of dosages. and that's more than you would give to a human in an inpatient, who someone's in a an asylum or whatever you call it. So that part is profound in the sense that the dogs don't have an ability to understand how to process what's going on contextually, right? Because we have to look at the conflationary structure of your dog has to process the rudimentary logic and emotive structures, right? They don't know how to process these things because it is, again, so rudimentary and there's no relational comprehension of it. What I do with everything basically is figure it out. And obviously, if I was wrong, I would be dead. And I have been in situations where there are just profound fear, and other times where Great Danes, when they fight, they move furniture. I used to have a baby grand piano, and they would just move that thing 700 pounds, 800 pounds, and they would just slide it across the floor, carpet or not, didn't matter. It was just brutal how strong and it really is watching two wild animals fight, and I will get in between them and stop them, and they will not usually, depending on the familiarity, will not attack me. And it is because I spend a lot of time in the first few days of teaching each dog, or the dog that comes in, that they are safe and that I will protect them, and I am not going to be upset with them if they attack me. Right, so that's the big thing. The dogs are going to expect that when they are feeling, need to protect themselves and they attack back to defend themselves. Right, it is always flight before fight. Always flight before fight. You will always run away to avoid fighting. You don't want to get into a fight. Right, that we know that innately. It's always flight before fight. So that's the answer to that evolutional question. But it is, what I'll do is I will let the dogs, like for example, when David first came here, I renamed him David. When he first came here, he was muzzled till about 2 a.m. I got him about 2 p.m. and it took me 2 hours to get into my car, and he was muzzled. He was just really quite dangerous, and it was quite frightening. And then getting him out here, and by the time around 2-3 o'clock in the morning, I had his muzzle off, and he was fully walking around with the other dogs and all that stuff. There were issues, of course, but he learned to be integrated, and he was able to cogently comprehend the emotions that were so foreign to him that normally he would just core down to rage or fear, causing then predaceous behavior. So when a dog attacks, they're expecting you to freak out and go and scream and yell and swear, throw things, whatever, run around in kind of a crazy thing of behavior that every predator expects of their prey to do. So I have been attacked. I've been picked up by a Great Dane, and I'm almost 200 pounds, 5'11", and I've been off my feet and shaken. Actually, it was Walter. The first day I met him, he got away from his handler. So it's how I behave afterwards as well. Because to your dog, or the dog, they are hoping that it's over. They may be expressing extremely negative, psychology, but they're really hoping that it's over. Right? Because if they're in the room and you just walk out of the room, that's it. It's stopped. They're not going to chase you down. There are dogs that Walter used to chase me across the room if I just stepped into the living room when he was eating. That was tough. But yeah, and I feed raw to all my dogs. But anyhow, so it's teaching dogs how to understand what they're feeling and then to cogently process what they're feeling so that they have a fuller consciousness of what's happening, so that they understand what's happening. So anyhow, these 10-minute audios are just basically everything that I've done. It's all together. I range all over the place, and so if you listen to all of them, then things will make sense. If you listen to one or two, you're gonna be like, I don't understand this guy. But everything I've done is learned from over 6 years of work. So I can't just explain it in 10 seconds, but I put it all together for you all to learn. Have fun.